Hello, we're live.
Action. Okay, everybody, thank you. So we'll just welcome everybody. I know it takes a couple seconds. Maybe you've got to buffer the video, open up the player. We're using a new technology for this live broadcast. It's pretty exciting. Jose set it all up. So don't forget, we've got a hashtag if you want to ask questions on Twitter. It's Layer7Live. I'm Steve. This is Jose. What's the email they can send in questions to?
techtalk@layer7.com.
So email lengthy questions, or if you have to drop off and you can't wait around for your answer. We've got Francois. We're broadcasting from two locations here at Layer 7 headquarters in Vancouver. And Francois is in Detroit at the Telematics Update Conference in Detroit, where the focus is on the connected car. So we're going to talk IoT, connected car, obviously APIs. So Francois, tell us what's happening with the connected car.
One thing before we do.
Okay.
If you do send a cool question, we do have shirts to give away. These are designed by myself. And some
new stickers.
Get these guys closer in here. This is our connected car sticker.
Yeah.
Those guys are free if you ask an interesting question.
And we'll send them out to you.
We'll mail it to you wherever you are. So this is got APIs. There's a blue version that Steve's wearing right here too.
And we'll send you the sticker too. Designed by Jose.
So, with that said, Franco, how are you doing?
Hey, Jose, Steven, it's great to be back on the Tech Talk. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, you know, incidentally, Francois was the original guest on the Tech Talk. The very first Tech Talk, March 2012, talking OAuth.
Yeah,
So
that's
welcome
right.
back, Francois.
Thanks. It's great to be here, and it's great to be at Telematics Update Conference in Detroit. This is the first for me. I've never been at that conference. Very interesting, very different, very exciting stuff. And yeah, there's a really big connection between the connected car and APIs. People are really savvy about APIs here, much more than I expected, because obviously when you're connecting things like cars, APIs are all over that. And UX, user experience, like the connected car is very much about user experience. You know, like people that are setting up systems to enable the connected car, that one of the major driver for this, no pun intended, is that user experience is sticky, right? Car manufacturers are attempting to lock users into the next purchase, right? So every 6 years, you on average, you buy a new car. You know, if every car is the same, it makes it easier for you to switch to another car. But if you get used to a connected car system, the same way that you get used to a platform, like on your mobile phone, you're less likely to migrate, let's say, from iOS to Android if you've been using iOS, you know, for years. So the same thing is what the connected car and the car manufacturers in general are trying to reproduce with the connected car.
So
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, and so there's always been, you know, so much design around car products in general, and this has always been the case. But now, this whole experience around the connected car is being integrated into that design. So you want the car to provide an experience that integrates into the digital lifestyle of the user, and that's what's going on. And APIs are key to enabling that connected car user experience. So we've seen this with mobile, right? Why is API so important for that? Why isn't the web model working for this? Why is it web APIs rather than the web? So if you think of what's been happening with mobile, why APIs have been such a central part of the explosion of applications on mobile, really is that you know, the same way that Ronnie Mitra has been explaining it to us for years. You know, like if you decouple the information from the actual presentation, you just get a much better user experience on your mobile device. And this is that much more important in the car. So on a mobile device, your applications are going to use APIs rather than rendering web pages. It makes a lot more sense from a user experience because you limit the amount of information that goes over the wire, so there's less latency that enhances the user experience. And also because you've got a smaller screen, it doesn't necessarily yield itself very well to a web page being rendered. So in the car, that's even more so the case. So this is what's going on right now.
So that's really interesting. But why is the advantage of an API over the web is much more pronounced in the car? I know you just sort of touched on it, context than it is over the mobile context. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe this is not obvious. Like like you're on your mobile phone. A web page might not be as convenient as a native application because you're not using a mouse and a keyboard like you would when you're using a browser at your workstation. Right. On a car, it's even worse than that because
you're trying to drive.
Well, yeah, very often you're trying to drive, right? So it's not even you get a smaller screen. You don't even want to be looking at a screen. Like I'm driving, I don't want to be looking at like a small screen on my dashboard. I should be paying attention to the road. So with the API, you get the information that you're looking for, and then it's the job of the application in the infotainment system to make that easy to consume, given the context, given the fact that you're driving. So what does that mean? An obvious way to achieve that is text to speech, right? So if you take the weather application example that Ronnie always gets back to, you take that information and instead of rendering it on a screen, you can actually text to speech it. So I'm driving, I'm asking for an information, and I get it through the API. The application gets the information and delivers it to me with speech. So we're already doing that with navigation systems, but the same type of experience is what the connected car driver, the user of the connected car is expecting when they're in the context of driving a car.
Yeah, so I think you're saying also in a car, with an API, you have the opportunity to really tailor to the need of a specific vehicle. Same with on your phone, you're not rendering the full page like you would an entire page. You kind of tailor down to the device. It's sort of what you're talking about.
That's right.
I just wanted to mention a couple of things.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Francois, you've mentioned Ronnie Mitra a couple of times. So I just want to explain to people listening who he is. Ronnie Mitra is one of the API Academy API architects on the team. So Layer 7's got a sub-brand that's API Academy, and it's all about API usability and design. And so Ronnie is one of the designers. I think that's what you would call him, right?
Yeah.
API
kind of an API
architect. So Francois is referencing some of his work. And also, quite a few more people have joined on the stream. So I just want to repeat what I said at the beginning. Like, we really want this to be interactive. Francois is at the show in Detroit Telematics. We're talking IoT, the connected car, obviously mobile apps, and maybe at some point we'll talk security and OAuth if there's any questions around that. So feel free, if you're on the live page watching the stream, to chat in a question or a comment. You can do it on Twitter as well with our hashtag, which is just #Layer7Live, and then email
techtalk@layer7.com.
techtalk@layer7.com.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen. And while we're waiting for questions, like another thing that I think is different about the connected car than the mobile driver for APIs is the fact that you've got a very fragmented set of platforms. It makes it more difficult for developers to create applications that are successful. I think we're still early in the life cycle of the maturity of the application market for the connected car, right? So like if you're building a mobile app, you can target iOS, Android, or both. It makes it really straightforward. But in the context of a connected car, there's so many different platforms out there. Very, very often these things are not as open as the mobile app ecosystem. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. But to me, what I'm noticing this week is that the connected car is not just about applications running in your infotainment system, but it's also your car integrating into your digital lifestyle. So the companion app is an obvious example of that. I'm using an app on my phone that talks to my car. My car will be talking to other aspects of my digital life. We were chatting last night about one of the cool use cases that are coming up this week. Here's an example. I'm driving my car home from work. It's minus 25 and outside, really, really cold. Maybe my Nest thermostat is aware of the fact that I'm actually going to be home in five, maybe 10 minutes because I'm actually driving, and my car it can share that information with other aspects of my digital life and predict when I'm going to get home and just kickstart the heating of the house so that when I come here it's nice and comfortable and stuff like that. So there's a whole bunch of applications like that. There's a lot of connections being made. It's a very exciting time.
It's very cool, but is it maybe a little scary too? Is there a security issue around connecting everything in your life?
Oh yeah, if that security, everybody's this week's talking about user experience. Everybody's also talking about security. People are paranoid, right? My car was hacked. This is what people are afraid of. My car is hacked. Obviously,
could it be hacked while you're driving?
Well, that's the thing, right? That's what people are concerned about, right? If my credit card information was hacked because I was shopping at Target and I'm freaking out because there's been this huge breach of security. I mean, that's one thing. But if a connected car is being hacked and especially in the context of a driverless car, which is not that far down the future, right? Imagine a driverless car being hacked. And a bad guy sending you down a cliff or something like that. I mean, that's the security implications are that much greater. And the more you want to do with the connected car, the deeper the experience you want to create, the more security risk happens. So there's a security problem or a security challenge at that level. And there's also a security challenge at the level of the connected car service provider is collecting a lot of information. That information is very valuable and can be used for many good things, right? So we're talking about big data here. We're talking about car manufacturers with tens of thousands, millions of cars out there sending telemetry information. Every 5 minutes, here's a snapshot of where I was. Every 5 seconds, my position, my speed, my direction. You're collecting all this information, and that's great. Maybe law enforcement wants to leverage that information because they want to know, like at 2 p.m. on a Friday, that's when people are speeding on this road segment. Let's go after that. Or maybe urban planning, right? I want to find out what is the usage pattern of a road system. How can I improve that? Well, with analytics, with all that data being made available, you enable a whole bunch of different use cases, and having an API in place to make that information consumable is really key to unlocking these things. But huge privacy issues there too. Getting back to security, big concerns around that as well.
Yeah, I have a question. So when do you think, or is it going to happen? Are we going to see a standardized kind of central console for a car? When are we going to see this central console running on Android in every car?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't see that emerging quite yet. I see a lot of fragmentation today. Like if you walk around the floor here, like everybody and their cousin has it seems like a platform that enables the connected car. So many different ones. The ones that are provided by the car manufacturers, obviously, and there's a few of those. There's the aftermarket ones. So it's still very fragmented. There doesn't seem to be a clear winner emerging today. But that's a huge opportunity as well. The race is still on, and there's no winner that are in sight as far as I can tell.
Right. So maybe take us through how the API works. Like in terms of, so that if you take an example of a car manufacturer like BMW, they have internal developers who design APIs that open them up to internal, or are they open to external developers who are building apps? How is that working?
Right. So APIs are a bunch of different places, right? So so if you're, to use your example, a BMW, or if you're an OnStar, if you're like a Ford, you've got an API that you're exposing as a connected car service provider that allows something coming from the outside, like an application or like on a mobile device or something like that, to interact with your car. So there's an API there at the connected car service provider, and there's also an API of the car itself, but that one is a private one that the service provider can use to interact. So if I remote start my car with my mobile phone, let's say unlock or start my car, there's an API call going to the connected car service provider, and then from there it's actually going to the car. So it's an indirect flow. The same thing happens if I want to retrieve information about my car, like a diagnostic or something like that. It's always an indirect flow, and that's I think a really essential part of providing a security layer for protecting that and protecting yourself against all the risk of being able to connect to your car.
Okay, we do have a question through the chat from Harley Low Speed. Has any thought been given to making requests via cellular and delivering content via Sirius XM?
That's a really cool use case. If I understand what they're suggesting is that over an internet radio, you'd be able to effectively push information to a car. But that suggests that you would have some sort of a private channel between like an internet radio service provider and a car, right? If we're both dialed into a radio station, the same radio station, we're getting the same feed coming to us, right? It's a one-way thing. But perhaps there is an opportunity for that type of service provider to provide personalized information, and that's great. There's really cool use cases that are surfacing this week. Things that, for example, somebody from GM in China was talking about an application that runs in your car, and there's a camera in front of your car that can actually read the license plate of the car in front of you, and it allows you to create this interactive network between the drivers by identifying by that license plate. So let's say that I'm driving, and like the use case that we're using is that I'm driving, this car come in front of me, and they left their trunk open. Maybe they're not aware of it. So as I drive my car, I can tap on that car on my screen, and I can text to speech or a message saying, hey, you left your car open. And the way that this works is the system reads the license plate of the car, knows, and so it goes back to the connected car service provider, and then they have the ability to send that message to the right car. So the person in front of you is reached via the license plate number. So that kind of use case is just fascinating. So many different things that are being imagined right now. Like it's really in its infancy, and there's a lot of really cool use cases. And I don't pretend to be the one that comes up with all these new cool business cases, but there's definitely a huge potential here.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, and you've commented on it a little bit. So how are, car manufacturers, Ford and the other ones you mentioned, how are they securing those APIs?
Right. Yeah. So a lot of people so as you know, Layer 7 is already securing some of these connected car APIs today, right? We've been involved in some of these projects for a while, and there are a few things that come up again and again. A lot of people are asking us things in common. One of them is, how should I explain that? So if I'm developing an application, and I'm developing an application in such a way that I'm going to expect that application to call my API once it's out there in the wild, I want to, in many cases, embed a secret in that application so that when it calls my API, I can identify what that is actually coming from my application, right? And people are struggling with that because, as you know, if you put your application on the public app store, it makes it easy for a hacker to download that application and reverse engineering the secret out of it so that it now has the ability to pretend to be your application. So we're talking about confidential versus public apps. And the problem is that when you don't have the ability to assert that this call is coming from your application, when your client is not really confidential, you have to shift the onus of asserting the identity to the actual user of the application. And that's when user experience goes down. So it's a problem we see a lot in mobile. In the context of a connected car, if you got an application that runs in the car itself, if it's an application that comes out of the car, out of the manufacturing line, you do have an opportunity to embed something in the car itself, right? It's not like a public app store where everybody has a copy of exactly the same application. So they do have an advantage from that perspective. They do have the ability to have more to assert the confidentiality of the app, but there's still a lot of concern that people would reverse engineer those secrets. So some of the stuff that we're doing with those car manufacturers is we implement handshakes, secure handshakes that issues tokens based on that secret, but without having that secret go over the wire at any point, right? So you prove possession of the secret without actually exchanging it. And you can imagine how we do that with things like digital signatures and things like that. So this is the kind of sophisticated handshakes that we've seen a lot of that in the context of the projects we're involved with the connected car.
Okay. Just remind people too to join in the discussion. If you have any comments or questions for Francois, feel free to put them through the chat. Harley, thanks for your comment. That was a good question. So far, you're the winner for the shirt. How about anything around multi-factor in-car and using multi-channel to enhance the user experience?
Yeah, so multi-factor is an interesting one because if you've used multi-factor auth, for example, with Twitter, right? You're logging into Twitter from a new computer for the first time, and you've set up your Twitter account so that it requires multi-factor auth. There's going to be like a one-time password that goes from your phone, and then you take that one-time password and then you transfer it to that other client that you're using, that new browser. So that is an easy way to raise the level of security, but not disturb the user experience too much, right? That one-time password that's only valid for a short amount of time can be a very simple 4-digit PIN code, for example. Something that doesn't disturb the user experience too much. The opportunity for the connected car, though, is to make that type of handshake that much more seamless. And what I mean by that is that you have something like a smartphone on you. You're in front of your infotainment head unit in the car, and if as a connected car, if I want to enable that type of secure handshake with the multi-factor, if the phone is connected to the connected car service provider, the IHU is connected to the service car provider, but there's a third link that you can leverage here, and it's the connection from the phone directly to the car, and that typically tends to be over Bluetooth. So imagine this, right? I'm going to send a challenge response handshake to a user via a smartphone, but I don't even have to type it and transfer it to the IHU because there's a Bluetooth connection that's going to complete that handshake. So it would be completely seamless. You wouldn't even be aware that this thing is happening. That is very, very powerful. So that last mile, that Bluetooth connection there, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think people are leveraging that right now. I don't think there's a standard way of achieving that. But I see a lot of potential in that kind of third link, last mile, to enable a secure handshake that doesn't disturb the user experience.
Very cool. So we do have 2 questions here in the queue. We'll get to them because we only have a few minutes left. So Danielle, thanks for your question. This is a good question. Will car manufacturers use their own OS, probably to have more control over data, or use Android or iOS?
Um, yeah, I can't predict the future, Daniel. But I'm hoping that there's a standard that emerges, because I think that that's
Kind of
going
what.
to be key to having a mature app marketplace. You can't have a rich app marketplace if there's like 50 different platforms as a developer that you need to code against. So right now, to my knowledge, there doesn't seem to be that standardization happening. And this week, there was a keynote from Gartner, and one of the things that was being suggested is that if the automotive industry doesn't get its act together, then Google will do it for them, right? That's one of the
Right.
things that's coming up this week. Like if you don't do it, the market will organically come up with that standard for you, because there's just no way around it. So yeah, what we need is some sort of consortium, or maybe there's like two or
Yeah.
more consortiums. So instead of having to code against 50 different platforms, maybe there's like two or three different alliances that you can bet on in order to reach out as many people as possible with your app. So once we get to that point, I think that the, the connected car app marketplace is really ripe for an explosion, and that's one of the things that's standing in the way right now. So we need to get to that point, and I think that that's going to unlock the door to a storm of applications coming up.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Danielle, for the question. Hope that answers it. Two more I've got in the queue, too. Phil Knight, looks like. How should APIs be designed differently when connectivity can't be guaranteed, for example, in the car?
Right. I'm not sure if that necessarily has an implication on the API. Right. That's the whole thing about APIs, is that you decouple
Different
the
than web.
information channel from the rest of the application. So perhaps I would say that what needs to be different is the way that you code your application on the client side. And that's the beauty of APIs, right? The beauty of APIs is that you have one channel that allows you to reach out to all these different platforms. The same reason why web doesn't work as well as web APIs for your smart TV or your fridge or your mobile phone. The same thing is true for the car. So web APIs reconcile that. You focus on the bit of information that you're looking for at a specific time. That's the pattern that APIs enable, and it's the application that needs to adapt to the context. The application needs to adapt because, like you say, you might lose connection, so you need to code your application in such a way that enables that. And perhaps there's also an implication in terms of API, such as you should not expect a connection to be permanent, right? So maybe a sessionless type of API design from a security perspective is something that enables that.
Great. So there's one more question from Wee Sniper. What's your perspective on OMG, Industrial Internet Consortium, effort for IoT interoperability?
I think that's exactly the kind of thing we need. I think that having that sort of consortium that can unify these different fragmented platforms right now is exactly the kind of thing that we need. So I'm not really familiar with that particular one, but that's exactly the kind of thing we need. And whether that particular one is something that the car industry is looking at or not, I can't say for sure. I haven't heard about it this week, but that's exactly the kind of thing that we're looking for.
Cool. And we do have, we're getting towards the end, so we don't want to keep Francois too long. We do have one other question through Twitter.
If people have last questions,
drop them in quick. And those of you who asked a question, Danielle and others, send us an email to
techtalk@layer7.com and give us your address and information, and we'll send you out a t-shirt.
Shirt size, blue, like I've got on, or these
one of these
wine-colored one.
But Steven, how are you going to know that it's actually them sending that message to you?
We have our methods.
we will
You have to
authenticate
send them a
them.
one-time password so that they can claim their
That's
feature.
true.
That's what you need to do.
Yeah, make sure social login before we do this.
Yes.
Okay, so can you comment on the OpenID Connect standard adoption?
Um,
We have
Sure, I
talked
mean-
about this in the past.
Yeah, I was hoping that I would do a tech talk without saying OAuth or OpenID Connect for a change. But yeah, I mean, you can't stay away from that, can you? There's one particular project that we're involved with, and the connected car manufacturers that we work with are hesitant to let us reveal the fact that we're working with them directly because of all that security issues that I was talking about. The less information you have, the better in that case. But yeah, so one of the major car manufacturers that we're working with, I was talking about these secure, handshakes for issuing tokens that avoid secrets to be passed over the wire. In that particular case, one of them is very much inspired by OpenID Connect. Using things like JSON Web Token, using things like HMAC signatures. This is the kind of stuff that is very much applicable in this case. The same way that it's applicable for, pretty much, any RESTful API security context. So it is also applicable here. And yes, I can tell you that it is being used today by connected car manufacturers.
Very cool. Well, if we always get the questions at the end. This is the talk always picks up momentum. People like to listen and then think about things. But thanks everybody for the questions. We are at the end of the time, so follow us on Twitter, and we'll have a replay up in this afternoon. And you can always ask us questions. We'll always find the answers. You can tweet them at Layer 7 Live, or hashtag Layer 7 Live. On Twitter, we're just at Layer 7. You can email them to techtalk
At layer7.com.
at layer7.com. And Francois and some of our other, subject matter experts will answer those questions. So
Yeah.
thanks everybody who joined.
And if you want to hear on a different topic next time, also send us an email or a tweet, and we will definitely get that done.
Yeah, because for those of you guys who've never been on one of these tech talks before, we do them one a month, and we're always looking for interesting topics. We try to go fairly technical because it's your chance to ask questions and comments to an expert live. So we welcome any questions and comments. Thanks everybody. Thanks Francois.
See you guys.
Natalie, if you're in the background there. Have a good time at the show. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Take care, guys.
See ya.